All right, I'm here with my friend Ellie again, and this is the end of the session. This is Ellie's roadmap to success. I'm going to summarize what we covered in this session, but I also want to mention a couple other things that we talked about that we don't have in video. So this window here is basically one of the things that Ellie likes to look at. She is a guard dog. She doesn't have a job, so she's in a habit of going over here, looking out the window, and barking at things. The problem with that is that's the perfect way to train a dog to bark at the window, because what happens in Ellie's mind, she hears a sound, she runs to the window, she sees a person out there, and she barks and says, "Hey, I'm Ellie, I'm the guard dog, you're not supposed to be there, get on your way." And guess what happens? The people go on their way. So Ellie thinks that every time people come by, they're trying to invade her house, but due to her diligence and her barking, she sends them on their way. And this happens 5 times, 10 times, 15 times a day. That's dog training, is repeating something over and over successfully. So what I would recommend for this is these windows. You can even do it on the outside of the window if she scratches it down, but I don't think she will. We want to cover the bottom third of the window. So when she goes to the window, she cannot see out of the bottom because it's got white paper. White paper is nice because it acts as a filter. It does let light in, but she can't see anything outside of it. So if she hears a sound and runs the window and barks, she doesn't get the validation of seeing them go away. This won't stop her barking problem. This will prevent her barking problem from getting worse. Now, when we do want to practice this game that we're doing, we take that paper down, and then we practice the game that we just did above, going outside. Because when we tried to go outside, as I mentioned in the video above, it was too much for her. She could not focus on us. So the tip that I include in the video above of going out a couple steps outside your door and waiting for her to check in, I would get in the habit of doing that until you can walk all the way down to the hill, and she's checking in with you on over. But if she doesn't, then that means remember you've gone too far. All right, we started this session by going over the marker words. I have a link on marker words below, so make sure you follow that. I want to make sure you guys walk around the house and load both the marker word and the clicker that I'm leaving with you, because outside she already had difficulty listening outside. Yes is going to be harder to listen for. The clicker is going to be easier. Now we have, because of the fire, there's a loss of power right now. So the family is running a generator outside. I don't know if you can hear it in this. It's loud. When you're doing the engage-disengage game, especially if you're outside, be aware of your surroundings. If there's a baby crying, somebody's fighting, there's a construction project going on over here, there's a truck backing up. Those things create anxiety and tension. We're used to it because we're used to living in urban places. Dogs, sometimes those are the things that add to it and make it more difficult. So we want to have the environment calm and quiet. If you want to do it, there's a great dog you want to do it, but there's 2 kids out there screaming and 1 kid's crying, don't practice. Pick another time. I know it sucks, it's a good opportunity, but we're just going to make it too hard for the dog. All right, so the markers are really important because that's the fundamental building block of everything. Message me if you have any questions on those. After that, we went over hand targeting. Boop. Yes, oh, that's actually really good. I talked about that in the marker words. She did not touch my hand, so I shouldn't say the marker word. Remember, half of how dogs learn is not saying the marker word when they don't do it. So I go over hand targeting. It's a nice alternative recall. It's a way to reposition the dog, but it also, I use it as a vehicle so you can practice the timing of using your marker words. So I'm going to have it linked below. Make sure you learn that exercise and practice. Remember, when the dog touches nose to your hand, yes, and then you leave your hand there and you put the treat on the hand. Okay, we also went over we went over the celebrate game, which is the absolute easiest way to train a dog. Yes, I just did it. I didn't ask her to come. Celebrating is rewarding her when she chooses to do things that I find desirable without asking for. So if right here, if she SAT'd on her own, I would say yes and pet her. I can tell her to sit and say yes when she sits and pet her. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a great thing to do as well. But if she comes to me, yes. A lot of dogs don't like to listen to us because listening just represents the end of fun. I'm having a good time, you ask me to come, and you call me in from the outside, and then I can't yell at that squirrel anymore. So listening to you represents the end of fun. But if every time she comes, yes, I pet her and scratch her bottom, or wherever she likes it, now, yes, coming to David is rewardable. It is not the end of fun, it's a good thing. So I'd like you guys to keep an eye out for when she sits, comes to you, lays down, picks up a ball, drops a ball, goes to her dog bed, eats her food, poops, whatever it is, anything you find desirable, say your marker word when she gets done and pet her under her chin. We also went over the dog consent and cutoff signals. Remember, dogs interpret starting your petting on top of their head is trying to dominate them. I'll try to link it below my little video on cutoff signals and consent. So watch that one and watch for her turning her head to the side, her ears flipping back, licking her lips. Those are her ways of saying, I feel uncomfortable. The more that you can recognize those things in the house, the better it's going to be for you to read her outside of the house. Now I want to chronicle how to read dog body language right here, so whatever time this is on the video, take this time down so you guys can watch it later on and figure out how to learn the body language. I can't read a dog all at once. So what I do is I look at portions of the dog. First thing I do, let's say we start at the head. I can start anywhere. If I look at the head, ears up could be more alerting. Ears to the side can be a little bit more humble. Ears back can be I'm uncomfortable. I don't like what's going on. I'm insecure. Ears forward can be a little bit more dominant, domineering, assertive, that sort of thing. Eyes, are the eyes open, big, and staring with no blinks, and high dilated pupils? That's a pretty high sign of arousal. Dogs, when they like things, their eyes are, we call it sleepy eyes, they're squinty eyes. So if you see open eyes that are not blinking and a hard stare, that's a big warning. Dogs can also, you'll see wrinkles on their forehead if they're really uncomfortable. If they're relaxed, you won't see that. Licking the lips can be a sign of anxiety or stress. And the mouth. So the open mouth is more relaxed. Could be. It also could be I'm breathing heavy to release tension. But if I'm a dog and I'm like, that's a big warning. I turn, I lower my head, I try to rotate my ears back. Mine are hard to see on the camera. But the ears go back, the mouth closes, they get stiff and still. Dogs are normally wiggly and jiggly. Stiff and still is a big warning. Your dog is stiff and still. What is around here that's me new? Let's move my dog away from that. Solve your dog's problem so your dog doesn't have to. Yes. So that's the head. And also looking at the nose. The dog looking at something is looking away. Sometimes they intentionally look away from it, and that's a signal too. All right, then after looking at the ears and the head, I look at the tail. A lot of people think the tail moving means the dog is happy. The tail is really more of an indication of the dog's energy level. It's more where it's wagging. If the tail's wagging on the left side, which on this side for her, and when I say left, I mean the dog's left. So I'm looking at her, so my right is her left. Her tail's only on this side, that can mean anxious or fearful. Circular or figure eights is a happy tail. And going up is flying the flag. I am alert, I'm letting everybody know. When you meet a bear, what you're supposed to do, make yourself big. When the dog's hair on its back goes up, the ears go up, the tail goes up, it's kind of an emulation of that. So if you see the tail go up and it's stiff or wagging really fast, that's a warning as well. If this is the dog's head, my shoulders are the spine, and this is the tail, we'd like to see the tail wagging in the middle. This is nice and relaxed. Her tail normally has a swoop like this right at the end. Yeah, a little bit of it. So if you see her tail starting to tuck in between her legs, she's covering her anus. That's an indication she's uncomfortable. If it's tucked, she's really uncomfortable. Don't have anybody meet her or approach her if her tail's tucked. She's already saying, I'm uncomfortable. So don't have somebody come up and meet her when she's uncomfortable. And so learning to read her tail can tell you, does she aroused? Is she friendly? Is it circular or is it going left? What is she telling us? Also a tongue that comes out where the end of the tongue looks like a spoon, that can be an indication of uncomfortable or fear and anxiety as well. Licking the lips can also be a sign of discomfort or being uncomfortable. All right, so then I also look at the dog's lean, and I'm a pantomime. So this, if the dog's legs are underneath them, they feel comfortable. I'm leaning back is an indication I'm uncomfortable. I'm leaning forward is an indication I'm getting ready to move in that direction. So how is the dog leaning? Are the feet underneath, behind, or in front? Then I look at the dog's breathing. Are they holding their breath? Are they breathing labor like she was, or is it normal? So looking and finding out your dog's normal rate of pace of breathing. So any of these one things, I'm not going to look at one thing. I look at a combination of things. So the way that I read it is I would have you guys, when she's at home and the generator's not going, everything's relaxed, there's no reason for her to be uncomfortable, how do her ears look? How does her face look? How does her tail wagging? How is her breathing? How is her stance? How is the tension in her body? Tense body is also a big warning. So now, after a while, you calibrated what she looks like when she's neutral. Then when one of you guys comes home, what does her tail do then? What does her ears do then? How is she breathing? How is she standing? So now we've calibrated neutral, we've calibrated happy or excited. Now we're on a walk and we see a deviation from those, we know that there might be something else going on. So dogs are awesome at reading us. We are horrible at reading them, but the better that you can read her, the better you can recognize she's giving indications she's uncomfortable and you move her away, she doesn't have to be reactive. Now the guardians here, hopefully you're going to give me the prong collar they have and I'll destroy it. Can absolutely, now the guardians mentioned that she was dog reactive before, and she might have been. In my experience, there are not very many aggressive dogs. There are a lot of fearful dogs that act in a way that we perceive as aggressive because they're trying to make things go away. That's why for us as a handler, if we see our dog get stiff and we move them away, they don't have to do anything because we've fixed their problem. So always kind of think about in the back of your mind, how can I fix the problem? The last little thing, a couple of things I'm going to go over. But ask yourself if the activity is too hard, if the dog is distant, like we went outside, she was not listening to us. We made it easier by coming in practicing inside. So if the environment is too busy, find an environment that's less busy. If things are moving too fast, have them move slower. The way I lower the intensity is I decrease the speed, I increase the distance, or if it's auditory, I decrease the volume. And sometimes we can do things like if she barks, and you mentioned there's a dog that she barks, that it barks and she barks, get a recording of that dog barking. When she's eating her food, play that recording at a low enough volume where she continues to eat her food. If she stops eating, it's too loud. Eventually, we play that on loop and over again, and now when she's eating, she's hearing that sound. We're counter-conditioning the sound. After a while, we raise that level. Eventually, your neighbor's like, do you got a kennel going on there? It's barking going crazy because you got to go through your speakers. But now she's desensitized to that. Matter of fact, barking means I get food. I'm not worried about barking anymore. That's a quality of life improvement. If you take that off of her list of things that are triggers, you made her life easier and better to deal with, easier to deal with things. All right, she's an older dog, so she doesn't need a ton of exercise, but I recommend you get a snuffle mat. The one that I like is RUNDICK on Amazon. It's a gray one. It has a bar around it. It has a picture of a golden retriever trying to grab it. If you can't find it, let me know. Feed her meals out of that. So that way she has to work for her food. It's a nice way to get her some exercise. The orange ball I showed you is an Omega Paw Tricky Treat Ball. You can get those, put a kibble in it. She's got to nudge that thing around. She's had some teeth pulled. Soak her dry kibble in hot water. Let it soak for about 15 to 30 minutes. And then run that water off, put a little warm water in it. It's a stew, or you can just let it sit there and when the water gets low, she has to drink the water and that food will be soft like mashed potatoes. Feeding her out of a snuffle mat is like a short walk. I also went over Cookie in the corner. Cookie, that was one where I was throwing the treats. I can't sit on my knees this long. Cookie in the corner was where I was throwing the treats on the ground. Yes, sweet girl. And so that's the introduction to scent games. I'll have that linked above or in this write-up somewhere. If I don't, let me know. I'll share that video with you. And then on walks, I'd like you guys to get in a habit of doing a U-turn. Now the way I do it, and I will actually stand up for this one, I'll show you, is we want to practice U-turns every block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the treat to her nose to get her attention. Then I'm going to keep that treat to her nose while I do a half circle. And then when I complete the half circle, I'm going to say, after I take one step, I'm going to say yes, give her the treat, walk about 12 paces, then repeat the process. So we want her to know that every block or every once in a while, we just stop and do 2 U-turns. So when you're walking and you see a dog in the distance before she does and you do a U-turn, she's used to it. And the way that I do that, thank you for the kisses, sweetheart, is, let's see if I can get up. All right, so I'm going to have treats in my hand for this. Here. Turn. Yes. Then I'd walk about 12 paces this way, and I'd repeat that. So I'm holding a treat to her. Turn, word comes before the action. Finish it, take 1 or 2 steps, say yes, and release that treat. Be careful, you'll get dizzy if you do that too much. But so if you start doing that, now you have a plan B. If the dog comes out of the woodwork, you can't see her, you just do a U-turn and you're walking the opposite direction. She didn't see it, so she didn't practice. Remember, your goal for her to modify her behavior, we want her to not practice the unwanted behavior for at least 3 months. So for 3 months, you want to do everything you can to prevent her from seeing other dogs outside the window or whatever the case may be. So follow me over here. There we go. All right, come here, sweetie. All right, so try to find ways that you can basically create a situation where I lost my train of thought with that transition. All right, with a harness, get an X or Y-shaped harness. You don't want one that goes across the front. That's called a T-shaped harness. You want one with a clip here. They're often called no-pull harnesses because when they pull, it turns the dog to the side as opposed to pulling directly against you. There's no harness or tool that stops dogs from pulling. The prong collar kind of does a little bit, but now my dog is anxious or fearful, has a negative association with what's around it. If you do it every day, she's got cortisol in her blood. She's twitchy, and it takes dogs 3 days of being relaxed for the cortisol to be worked out of their blood. It's quite possible she has PTSD, and it sounds ridiculous for dogs. Film me here. Hey, sweetie. Hut. Now, what I'd like to do is this. Yes. 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 This is wonderful. You went away from the window with people. Yes. If I had my clicker out, I'd be using my clicker for this. And I have an idea for this. Oh, thank you. Ellie. Now the person's right there. She normally would be barking and going crazy right now. So what I recommend you do when you're going to have an Uber like this, be ready. Have this open. Be sitting here with a ton of treats. Use this when it comes up. Use your environment as much as you can to help your dog feel good about it. So you saw, normally she'd be freaking out right there for that, right? The whole time? Right?
Yeah.
But now she's going over and looking at it. And I like using the clicker because, like I said, it's more intense. But the people are still there. She's standing there looking at them and not barking at them.
And she's looking at someone getting out of their car that she's parked.
Yeah. And it's one of the guardians, I think, just went in there as she's getting a ride. And even though that's the case, she doesn't know who that is. Her job, she thinks she's the guard dog. That's why we talked about celebrating. So please tell each other, celebrate, point at each other. If somebody says celebrate, we just reach over and pet her under her chin. Say yes, and then reach over and pet her. We don't need to know what it is. But what I want all of you to do is be mindful of. So when she does come up to you on her own accord, we're going to say yes and pet her. And we celebrate, I do it with a celebrate, I normally do just with a pet. But if I have to use a treat because it's too intense, I can use a treat. But we want to basically use the lowest level treat we can get away with. Ellie, come. Sit. Remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. I'm using motion here to lure her into position. She's not doing it, so I'm not marking. I'm not saying SIT, SIT, SIT. Sit. So patience is crucial. This is my buddy Ellie, and this is Ellie's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.